Right now in MPL, it's time for us to get underway. Reid Duke, as we've already mentioned, a little higher in the standings than BBD, but BBD has a mighty hunger for victory here. And we can see here that Reid has already mulliganed at least once. Now, Reid does have a slight disadvantage here against BBD in that we've seen previously BBD suffer from people breaking into his room and attempting to get him to concede. Now, BBD has played around that masterfully in previous tournaments. Not going to have to worry about it here with Reid, as I don't think these two live near each other.
Yeah, I believe they are on opposite sides of the country. Great starting hand from Reid. BBD, a bit of an awkward hand considering no turn one untapped land to be able to deploy any of the many one drops in his hand. But something I do want to draw attention to is the copy of Deadweight in BBD's hand. Not a card that we're used to seeing in constructed play, but a card that has seen dabblings of play as long as Luris has been legal and standard. Just being essentially a recursive removal spell can be so important in stabilizing board states against aggressive strategies.
The other really important factor with Deadweight, not only can it be brought back with Luris, of course, the companion of BBD's deck, it also just cleanly kills Season Hallowblade.
It does, and I think that is absolutely one of the big nods this weekend with what many players expected to be the prevalence of mono white. I think bringing Dimir Rogues a bit of an interesting choice considering a lot of players consider it to be not great in these aggressive matchups. But here we're seeing with the Ruin Crab into the deadweight curve, essentially BBD was able to cleanly get rid of that Edgewall Innkeeper before Reid has a chance to draw cards off of these adventure creatures. And now with a Heartless Act and Eliminate to clean up these Lovestruck Beasts, Reid is out of cards and likely won't be able to play that Great Henge for quite a few turns.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the Great Henge coming down would be a real pain in the bum here for BBD. So he's going to take action here to make sure that it doesn't happen. Main phase removing the Lovestruck Beast there. And the second one, again, as you can see, the answer waiting in hand in the form of Eliminate. So things looking pretty good here for Reid Duke and his, for BBD and his Rogues deck.
Yeah, this is the exact type of start you're looking for as the Rogues deck in this specific matchup. Fortunately for BBD, he did not end up missing his third land, found that Temple of Deceit, and now with an Into the Story on top of the deck, as we can see, BBD is just one land away from essentially executing his entire game plan of keeping the board clear from Reid long enough to be able to put everything together. Something that is notable about Reid and Ely's version of this Naya Adventures list is they're playing the full 4 copies of the Great Henge. Normally, we only see 2 copies from some of these more mid-range decks. So if you get stuck with multiple copies, as we see could happen to Reid, we did see a few getting milled there, 2 actually getting milled, luckily enough. But if you get stuck with multiple copies and no way to cast them, that can spell trouble for you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the extra copies of Great Henge are an answer to the fact that there are so many more answers to it floating around main deck in the format, especially with cards like Binding of the Binding the Old Gods, this sort of thing. You can't rely on the Great Henge surviving as much as you might have before. So having a backup isn't the worst thing in the world, considering the first copy might not stick around. Here we see a double attack with 2 1/1s. This will now enable the Bone Crusher Giant to deal with one of the Ruin Crabs. With 2 damage marked on it. 1 damage marked on it from the 1/1, and then an extra 2 from the Stomp. But into the story. This is one of the cards that the Rogues lists use in order to really seal the deal, Marnie. They refuel with 4 cards for just 4 mana at instant speed, and all of a sudden, they just leave their opponents completely in the dust.
Yeah, fortunately for Reid, the shields are down for Brian. He did have to fire off that Into the Story to find some mana. So not able to leave up anything like a Drown in the Loch this turn, which means Reid can get the Great Henge down should he choose to do so. And suddenly, Brian will have to be aware that Reid may just not run out of gas. Once a Great Henge is on the battlefield, there is no way to get it off the battlefield in the main deck of this Rose list. So right now, this Great Henge is here to stay, and suddenly things are a lot scarier for Reid in terms of what he's presenting than they were a moment ago.
Yes, indeed. The Great Henge really is such a hugely problematic card to deal with for some decks, especially those not playing main deck answers like the bindings that I was talking about here. It's not as though it's just over for BBD here. There's still a lot of Magic to play here, but the Great Henge as a support card, as a utility card, buffering the life total, drawing you extra cards, beefing up your creatures, the advantage that it accrues really does accelerate your game very quickly. We're going to see the Lovestruck Beast come down as a 6/6. We're going to see it draw an extra card. Reid now with a lot of options available for him.
Yeah, I think Brian really taking a moment to consider whether he wanted to play that second Wind Robber or whether he wanted to take 3 damage to leave up 2 Adrenaline Locks. And I think the reason that was so important for Brian is recognizing there's already a Lovestruck Beast in the Adventure Zone. So if Reed draws another creature, 1 counterspell may not be enough to stop the card advantage train, whereas 2 ensures that no matter what Reed draws, no matter what Reed draws, Brian will be able to prevent him from resolving a creature this turn.
It's really important to keep that in mind when you're playing, the fact that your opponent can start chaining stuff once they get the Great Henge down. Necessarily they've got a bunch of extra mana to spend. If they draw a creature and they draw another creature, or perhaps they've got a spare that they drew for their draw step that turn, it can be really, really rough, and all of a sudden they can build a board out of nowhere. So, yeah, I think this is a judicious play here from Brian, and I think that he's going to be paid off for it quite handsomely here with this double crown of the lock turn.
Yeah, I love the decision making from Brian here. Now forcing Reed's hand. Reed doesn't have a 5th land here, so does he want to go for a stomp and essentially let go of the card draw? But with the second Drown Lock, Brian will almost certainly counter this as well and just leave Reed with nothing.
Yeah, because countering the adventure half of a card also puts the creature itself in the bin. You don't get to cast the 4/3 from exile now from the adventure zone. So that was a backbreaking play there for Brian, and completely took the wind out of Reid Duke's sails even after this Great Henge came down.
Yeah, and Brian looks like he's running low on cards, but we'll be able to just use this Merfolk Wind Robber to essentially block the Bone Crusher Giant, cash it in for a card, another Wind Robber in hand if he needs a card, or to do it again next turn. And this just means that now Brian's entering the territory where he can stabilize, and an Of One Mind as well. So this just starting to slip away from Reed if he doesn't draw a creature on this draw step.
And here we see, just a bunch of lands being drawn, but the Zagoth Triumph cycles. There's also Lurrus as well, which can come back and start putting stuff into play. So yeah, it's all coming up BBD right now. Reid, if Reid finds a creature and can chain together a bit of a turn here, but even then he doesn't have those explosive finishes, right? That some decks like this have. He doesn't have the dragon, the Embercleave. He doesn't have stuff like that.
Right, this is the big downside we talked about from this Naya Adventures deck, is the explosiveness that we're used to seeing from things like Embercleave to really disincentivize your opponent or punish them for blocking don't exist as much in this list. Bonecrusher Giant, great draw for Reed, will allow him to kill off this Thieves Guild Enforcer and get a creature to draw a card with, but we can't see how many cards are left in Reed Duke's deck, and that's going to be really relevant considering that is currently Brian's primary win condition in this game.
Doesn't need to actually deal all the damage. Look at this, Duke on 26, like that's fine. And I believe, I'm going to double check here, but I believe the draw is mandatory.
The draw is absolutely mandatory. So at some point, Reed will just be unable to play creatures.
Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Fantastic. And draw a card. Usually fantastic. Not great if you don't have that many cards left in your library. So can turn into something, a little bit of a liability. The other thing is here, BBD can also start recurring the Merfolk Wind Robber from the bin with the Lurrus to draw extra cards and, critically, chump block. So it's Reed's really going to have to pull together quite a large force here to push through the final points of damage, considering that BBD, who is drawing a few too many lands. Now, there's a lot of Magic still to play here.
Yeah, this is how BBD loses. He's drawn 4 lands in his last 4 draws, essentially. That Of One Mind hit 2. And he drew another one off the Wind Robber, another one for his draw step. So suddenly a game that looked pretty good for BBD, he had everything stable, has spiraled out of control with essentially a single turn cycle. Part of that because Reed hit the essential creature, not just an essential creature, but one of the best creatures against rogues in Bonecrusher Giant on the essentially 1 turn window he had to do so. And now BBD might be forced to play Lurrus, get back Wind Robber, but with that Scavenging Ooze as well, Reed has extra uses for all this green mana, and this is a scary clock that Reed is presenting.
Yeah, this game has sort of gone to and fro here, all over the place, and now Ryan's going to have to find something special. He does have the Lurus, can bring back Merfolk Wind Robber as a chump blocker that also sacks to draw a card. So he's definitely not dead like next turn.
Yeah, he could be though.
You think? Yeah.
There are draws. If Reid was to draw one of these removal spells to get rid of one of these blockers, like the Lurus, he could put Ryan at least to one. So there's a few different draws that could actually put Reid in a position to win this game here. With Showdown of the Skulls could go for it, but considering that looks at 4 more cards, that may not be the type of card he wants to play, depending on how many cards left in his library.
Reid having a look through the graveyard of BBD here.
Yeah, Brian has a Thieves Guild Enforcer on top of his deck, so he could actually preemptively sacrifice this Wind Robber to draw that Enforcer, just in case he wants to go for a Death Touch blocker here instead of a chump block with a Wind Robber to then cycle and draw a card. There are benefits to that. However, it does mean that he essentially has one less turn of blocks, and also doing that means he would not be able to do the more mana efficient play of the Zagoth Triumph. Considering how behind he is, this makes a lot more sense to me.
We're going to see the Merfolk Wind Robber cycled away here, sacrifice to draw a card. No worries, you can bring that back with Lurus, and that's like one of the nice little engine pieces of this list here. And there's the Enforcer off the top. We're going to see Zagoth Triumph cycled away as well. Much more mana efficient use of BBD's turn here, as you mentioned. A Showdown of the Skalds here.
Reid is really doing the math on, and I wish we had the number of how many cards left in Reid's library, but he's really trying to figure out whether he needs to commit another creature to this board and draw a card with it. Same with Showdown of the Skulls. Everything he plays at this point has a cost. 13, we're getting where the 13 cards left in Reid's deck, so drawing one and putting himself on a multiple of 3 could be something that's costly with that Ruin Crab in the graveyard Lurus in play. So Reid may be just tempted to pass with 4 green mana up or just start activating the Scavenging Ooze. No need to play a creature potentially.
Looks like he's going to play the Kazandu Mammoth here, yes. Showdown of the Skulls might be sailing a little too close to the wind.
Absolutely not getting cast this game with 13 cards left, now 12.
And another copy of the Great Henge. Okay, well, that may as well just be blank cardboard. Yep, that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 textless cards now.
It gains 2 life. You play it, gain 2 life.
Oh, man. Okay, this is going to be tight. Brian has a cycle. Ideally, he's looking for... Honestly, with 12 cards left in Reid's library, I think... I'm not sure if there's like, 2 Ruin Crabs or 3 Ruin Crabs left, because if there's 3... Okay, there's 2. Reid needs to exile both these Ruin Crabs, because I think that is one of the only ways he actually loses this game.
Like, if BBD draws a Ruin Crab, plays a Ruin Crab from the bin with Lurus, plays a land, that's 6 cards. That's half of Reid's library.
Well, if he finds a Fabled Passage, that's the big concern for Reid, is that's 12.
Reid's
so
playing
he needs
around
to
it.
Prevent that from happening.
Yeah, Reid's playing around it as well. He's going to exile one of the Ruin Crabs, maybe the other one as well.
Yeah, looks like the other one he's saving for the upkeep just to see if BBD had anything on end step. But yeah, he found his loss condition is those Ruin Crabs are what are going to get me. Let's get rid of them.
So smart. Yep, gets rid of it. Okay, and eliminate. Don't think that's going to be enough here.
Okay, so eliminate Lurus, a creature from the graveyard, Thieves Guild Enforcer. That is, in and of itself, 4 blockers for the 4 problem creatures. So BBD is not dead based on what he's seeing right now.
And don't forget that the Lurus also gains some life. So BBD on an effective 6.
Can mill 6 cards with a Thieves Guild Enforcer from hand and another from the graveyard. Might opt for a Wind Robber instead.
Yeah, I was going to say the Wind Robber's just so he can draw another card here on the blocks. But it could also be the Thieves Guild Enforcer. It's a main phase one. No, the Windfolk the Merfolk Wind Robber here coming in. Windfolk Mer Robber. To
a classic, of course.
Cycle away, yes.
8 cards left for Reid Duke in the library right now. This is going to be really tight.
Be really, really close. Coming right down to the wire, this one here. Now,
Ryan's
BBD,
decision making.
considering whether he's going to play a land or not, holding on to that eliminate. Obviously, I mean, he doesn't attack with Luris, of course. Not with the 4/4 blocker in the way. Because he can block with the Luris, gain some life, and prevent damage coming across.
I think Brian's thinking about whether he wants to let Reid untap with Scavenging Ooze or not.
Right.
Part of letting Reid untap means that Reid doesn't know that Brian has a removal spell when choosing how he wants to make his attacks. So that definitely has some value to Brian, but by allowing Reid to untap, he allows Reid to selectively get rid of some cards from his graveyard before the Ooze dies, should he want to do so, which he almost definitely will.
Giant Killer's Chop Down doesn't do much against this deck at the best of times, and now certainly no exception. Sometimes you can use it to snag a Thieves Guild Enforcer if they've got a Soaring Thought Thief out, but no dice this time. So just maybe a 1/2 that replaces itself here. But again, these aren't the draws that Duke's looking for here.
7 cards left in Reid's deck. So playing Giant Killer as a creature would put him down to 6, which is a scary number. Something that I believe Reid can do is use Chop Down on his own creature that is blocked by Luris. Should Brian go for something of a more risky block, hoping the life gain would keep him alive?
Yeah, if there was some kind of block that meant that BBD only lives because of the life gain, then that would be an option here. But it looks like it's just going to be 3 blocks across the board here. The Luris will trade off with the Bone Crusher Giant, and a Thieves Guild Enforcer trading off the other one thanks to Death Touch. And it's just a chump block on the Mammoth. But of course, jumping with the Wind Robber's not too bad. It does replace itself.
BBD still has 3 copies of Into the Story left. If he hits one here, it will be massive. That is also
didn't say
massive.
Please. That's pretty bad for Reid in 2 ways. Of course, not only is it going to neutralize one of his spells, but also it's going to obliterate half his library. Wow. Counter spells these days, huh? Counter target spell, mill half your opponent's library. What's he?
Never has cancel looked so good.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like, BBD might just fire if they didn't say please on this Giant Killer just to make sure that Reid doesn't do anything else.
If this Giant Killer resolves, a blocker from BBD doesn't do it anymore because it can just get tapped down. I don't think BBD has an option in letting this Giant Killer resolve.
Well, Reid Duke, a man known for his manners and his politeness, is about to get didn't say pleased here.
The eyebrows go up.
Well, should have remembered your manners there, Mr. Duke.
4 cards left for Reid. Zagoth Triumph, that's a cycle. That's a redraw, but oh, this is very close.
Needs a removal spell or a blocker to get in the way of this Mammoth. Doesn't find it. Wow, gone right down to the wire here, but it looks like Duke's going to take it out. Looks like Reid has got this one here. 2 cards in hand for BBD. Both of them lands. Reid's drawn a bit of a blank ski. Oh no, it pumps up the Mammoth very nicely, actually. And Brian goes down swinging. Unfortunate for him. He's facing passive as he takes the loss. Unfortunate that he really couldn't find what he needed in those last couple of turns there. Just a couple too many lands there, Money.
That game was so close. And, you know, Brian can lead that game's decision-making all the way back to, like, turn 5 when he blocked 2 1/1 tokens with 2 crabs, and Reid had the stomp on one of them. If he takes that damage, mills 3 more cards, maybe that game goes entirely differently for Brian. But in the moment, it looks absolutely correct. We're not saying Brian made a mistake, but it's something that you can trace back how that game went all the way back to decisions as early as the first turns of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly right. And it's funny how those turns do echo on through the through the rest of the game here. You can see the sideboarding decisions made by both players, but we're going to jump straight back into the game here. Straight back into the match here, I should say, for game number 2. A slower hand here for Reid. He does have that Elder Gargaroth, but that's 4 lands, 5 lands if you include the Shadow Skull Smashing and a Lovestruck Beast. Whereas BBD also, wow, is that 5 lands in his hand as well? My goodness. What do you think of that?
It is. Slower hands for both players.
Yeah.
BBD does have the Soaring Thought Thief as well as a Drown in the Loch, and considering his deck also has access to Luris, I'm not surprised to see him keep that hand. He is looking for more controlling draws, made even better with that draw of the Thieves Guild Enforcer now. For Reid, was a bit awkward considering he was missing a second green source for this Elder Gargaroth, but that Kazandu Mammoth off the top does fix that problem should he go for it. I think he has enough time to maybe just play a mountain here and not commit his creature as a land, though, considering he doesn't need double green this turn. He can play the Mammoth as late as turn 4 and still curve into the Gargaroth on time.
Yeah, and the fact that he's got those Love Struck beasts to keep him going until then is also just fine, right? We see that Soaring thought they'd come down wisely. No attack there for Reid Duke. Obvious as the nose on your face there that BBD had something going on. Yeah, and in comes the Thought Thief for 1.
Things have not gotten better for BBD post-board. Reid got to board out the Giant Killers, which essentially we said the chop down does nothing in this matchup. Instead, bringing in copies of Clothis as well as Ox of Agonis, which has kind of been the bane of Rogues' existence as long as it's been played in standard against these Gruul matchups. So certainly Reid getting very rewarded for his decision making, getting to play this Kazandu Mammoth now, and Brian just, it's going to be a tough game if Reid starts curving out into this Great Henge, into this Elder Gargaroth, starts drawing cards.
Saw BBD fall victim to one of the classic blunders there, milling out 50-something cards. It's the way that mill decks always go, right?
Right. People say 1 is not 0 when it comes to life total, but that applies to mill as well, except their deck life total is 3 times as much as their regular life total. So if you mill 59, you haven't milled 60. That's not the game.
Soaring Thought Thief comes across, milling 2. And Reid takes 1 upstairs as well. So this could be the Shadowskull smashing tapped or into Lovestruck Beast turn here. So there's the Elder Gargaroth next turn. No showdown, obviously, no showdown.
This feels like the best option for Reid. Looks like there is a no, that was just in the graveyard. Yeah, Reid just taking the time, holding on to that smashing in turn. In case he draws another land next turn. This gives BBD the window to cycle and try to find something other than this handful of lands that at this point in the match he's just so used to seeing.
Really rough stuff here for BBD. Really rough stuff. He's flooded out pretty badly. And unless he finds something like a Didn't Say Please or another answer to the Gargaroth, he's going to be in trouble. Didn't Say Please, by the way. I mean, obviously a great name for a counterspell. It's been joined now by Saw It Coming. What's next, Money? What's coming to us in Strixhaven? What's the 1 blue counterspell in Strixhaven? What is it? Nice try, idiot?
I think it's going to be shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Don't even bother.
It's all going to culminate into should have played around it.
Should have played. No. Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Still had all these.
Still had all.
The year is 2024. WotC has released the new Return to Ravnica set. And the headline act, at 1 blue uncommon counter target spell, your opponent hangs their head in shame. It's called Still Had All These. I still really want a card called Nice Try Idiot, though. I think that's extremely good.
The next unset will have Nice Try Idiot.
Nice Try Idiot.
Riley Knight in brackets.
Just
after.
me with my tongue out. Do it. Yeah, absolutely. Love it. So we're not going to see the Elder Gargaroth this time here. We're going to see instead an Edgewall Innkeeper and a Lovestruck Beast. Reid Duke testing the water here. And Braun-Duin, no copies of Didn't Say Please, no copies of Saw It Coming, no copies of Nice Try Idiot. And it is, in fact, a nice try here for Reid, who not only develops his board, but also his hand very, very neatly here with the addition of an extra copy of Edgewall Innkeeper, that Great Henge, and Elder Gargaroth. Plenty of business here for Reid Duke. He's looking very good.
Yeah, Reid Duke testing the waters, and the water's perfect. He is very much enjoying it.
Oh, a great point made in the chat. Do you know what we can look forward to with the upcoming Lord of the Rings expansion?
Hit me with it.
None Shall Pass.
Oh, fantastic.
Very, very good. None Shall Pass is extremely good. Yep. Clothis off the top here. Wow, an embarrassment of riches for Reid. What do you go for here? A delectable selection here for him.
I think you just start off with that Great Henge.
I mean, you tried last turn, and BBD was doing nothing about the fact that you were playing high impact cards like the Innkeeper and big beaters like the Beast. So I think you just go for it.
All right, Riley, here it is. This is
Go
going to
on.
resolve. Reid is going to cast Clothis. Will BBD realize Reid will have 7 devotion if Clothis comes into play, essentially drawing a card and
Of
removing
course.
Lovestruck Beast before that happens? Or will he just save the Erebos' intervention, let Reid have the card, and intervention the Clothis?
Well, intervention does kill Clothis, right? Even though it's
It,
indestructible, you can give it
it
minus
does
five, minus
now.
five.
Yeah, before it gets the counter, you minus five, and get it out of here because you are not beating that Clothis God of Destiny.
Yeah, so an Erebos' intervention here, but the damage kind of done because it will draw a card. Even though it's off the battlefield by the time the ability resolves, you still get to draw the card.
And a green source and
Oh,
Keeper
wow,
give
wow,
the
wow.
card.
How does he do it? How does he do it?
Eh,
Edgewall Innkeeper picks up a counter and a card as well. So Reid Duke really popping off the top here. Can attack with the Love Struck Beast. Of course, he'll lose one of them to the Thieves' Good Enforcer. Decides to just chill. He's good. Don't worry about it.
All right, Brian, finally drawing a draw spell of some kind.
No, it's actually called Of One Mind, not of some kind, Manny. But it's
My
an easy
mistake.
mistake to make.
Yeah, they're very similar.
They're very similar. And here's a non-human,
Oh
which
God.
lowers the cost, and 2 lands.
This is, by the way, why we haven't seen Reid attacking. Normally, at some point, you want to get rid of the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Oh God, this is 3 cards here from the Lovestruck Beast alone. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, this is
because it
disgusting.
replaces itself as a 5/5 exactly, and gives you the 1/1 as well.
Oh,
Really important to note as well that your cards like Edgewall Innkeeper, they don't allow a Lovestruck Beast to attack once the Great Henge is on the battlefield. So you do want those 1/1 human tokens in case they get dealt with to make sure your 5/5s can still rumble.
yeah, what I was actually
No, you don't.
saying.
Actually, don't worry about it. Ignore me. Ignore everything I was saying. You just play the 5/5. Go ahead, Money. Sorry.
I was just saying that the the attacks from Reid, normally he would be trying to get the enforcer off the board so he can start attacking, but because of Loris and Reid having no answer for it right now and no cards in the graveyard for Brian to recur, he just doesn't want to give Brian any additional advantage. He's just making sure, taking his time, going wide, and eventually the attack will just be lethal.
The ooze also really helps here because you can attack, trade off, and then eat the Thieves' Good Enforcer.
Yeah,
So
that
that
may.
Reid maybe going to change tack here after playing the little scoozy here.
Yeah, he will be taking the risk that Brian does have a removal spell he hasn't played yet. Obviously, with the amount of redundancy that Reid is presenting here, uh, he won't be able to. He had no real reason to use something that can eliminate so far. So if Reid attacks, Brian blocks and eliminates the ooze before his creature goes to the graveyard. Reid can get punished for it. Maybe something he plays around here, which it looks like he is. Bit surprised he didn't go for a white source, but I guess with the Needle Verge pathway already in hand,
Just doesn't
he
need it.
didn't really need it.
I was reading. I think it was Reid who wrote up a deck guide on Channel Fireball for this list. I think it was Reid who did that, and in it he made the point that this list is very much a Gruul deck splashing white, right? Despite the fact this is giant killers, despite the fact this is the showdowns, you can play a functional game without white mana a lot of the time. We're seeing here exactly why. You don't need a lot of white mana in order to use those white cards. There's not like Elder Gargaroth and the Mammoth that have double green in their costs or what have you. Even Bone Crusher Giant, effectively a double red card. The white mana is a lot more forgiving. You only tend to need one, maybe 2 sources.
Right, this is the Gruul Adventures deck that we are used to seeing that is essentially just traded Embercleaves for Showdown of the Skulls, as well as having access to Giant Killer and some powerful white sideboard cards like the Dranith Magistrate, I believe it's
Yep,
called.
Traneth Magistrate, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, it, it, it's tough. Like BBD's draw spells aren't chaining in the way that he would hope. He still hasn't found it into the story, and Reid has access to the entire world essentially. I think this is the attacking turn.
Is this where you go for it here? There is that Heartless Act, though. BBD is going to be able to remove something. Not the Scavenging Ooze. Not the Scavenging Ooze, of course.
Not the Ooze, not the Lovestruck Beast that has a counter on it. The Great
So
Henge
maybe it's just fine.
slowly just invalidating this.
Oh, and is this a double block? No, okay. We're just seeing the Thieves Guild Enforcer go after the Scavenging Ooze, but that's not gonna pan out because there's that fire prophecy.
Yeah, I think
with 1,000 green mana as well to make sure it gets exiled.
I think Reid might actually just be letting it go. Yeah, I think he's going to use the Fire Prophecy to kill Luris.
Right, and actually eating the 8th card
Oh,
out of his
he ate
graveyard.
a card from his graveyard, of
He
course.
ate the 8th card out of his graveyard to make the I didn't have the count on the graveyard, but that's really smart as well. Eating the Clothis in order to prune down his graveyard a little bit. There's a Heartless Act to do it again, but Reid's like, oh, I got green mana for days, mate. I got green mana for days. So this Thieves Guild Enforcer, just a 1/1. Huge play there from Reid. That's really smart stuff. And now there's that Fire Prophecy as a neat answer to the Luris.
This game is disgustingly over. You don't even need to get rid of Luris. Just exile the Thieves Guild Enforcer.
Just make sure there's no food for it. Yeah.
What are they getting with Luris?
I'll get my of one mind. No, mate. Doesn't work for so many reasons.
Reid has just dismantled Brian this match.
Yeah. Ripped him limb from limb, mate. Reid's been doing great this weekend. 5-2, shortly moving to 6-2 here. He's well up towards the top end of town when it comes to the overall standings. As you'd expect from a player of his caliber, he really has just been putting on a clinic all weekend. And it looks like he's going to sail towards victory in this matchup as well. Poor old BBD, who's been trying to claw his way up the rankings since after getting off to a very ordinary start in the league play.
Yeah, I think Reid has just been like extremely consistently just above 50% in the league weekends.
Just a classic John player, dude.
You just take the little edges, right? You don't need much more than that. That's all you need.
52% against the field, man. That's Reid Duke. Put that on his tombstone.
I think he finished with 14 wins over the first 2 weekends and 7 wins over the first weekend of the Kaldheim League. So just 7 wins a weekend. That's what he's averaging.
Yeah. He's doing really well.
12, that's not bad. You take those in the field.
You take that, man. You take 7 and 5 in
this field
like these.
I would take 7 and 5 every time.
I mean, I'd take like 2 and 10 to be honest. If I took a game off any of these people, I'd be amazed. Scavenging is going to chomp up that Luris, get another life, get another counter here.
This game is so demoralizing for Brian to keep playing at this point.
On the face of it, like looking at Reid's deck, I was like, this doesn't seem very good. Like, where's the panache? You know, where's the big finish? Where's the prestige? But it just doesn't seem to need it. Reid, of course, eating cards out of his own library, even if he doesn't gain life or get counters, just to make sure those into the stories, those Thieves Guild Enforcers have as little impact as possible. But here, I mean, this is rearranging deck chairs on the, well, not on the Titanic because Reid's about to win. So rearranging deck chairs on the Carpathia, I guess. This is looking very, very good for the American Hall of Famer here.
Yeah, Reid currently representing 10 damage with 2 chump blocks. And, you know, it's just not getting better for BBD. Best draw in his deck, likely an into the story. Would it be enough at this point? Probably not.
All right, bam, in they come. We're going to see 2 blocks, of course, on the biggest creatures here, but this is still 10 damage coming across. And there's plenty more where that came from in future turns as well. Let's not forget about that. By the way, BBD holding 2 cards that do effectively nothing. Agadeem's Awakening and a Clearwater Pathway. Really not what he wants in this situation. So, down to 4.
Reid will likely take the time to exile some stuff if he wants. Just pass the turn. Really doesn't matter.
No, Reid, I think, can just click on glowing cards at this point and would still win the game very handily. See what we've got off the top here. A Thieves Guild Enforcer. And BBD packs it up, handing Reid Duke a 2-0 victory.